how do I say it? I have to choose my words carefully here.
How many air defense missile Iran want, China can deliver.
Does that mean that Iran should lean towards China and move away from India then?
India and Iran don't even have very close ties now. In terms of defense purchase, there's nothing that Iran, I think, buys from India.
U.S. has no allies. U.S. only have vassal states. It demands everybody to bend their knee and to kiss the ring.
What was the percentage of the population that was in support of Iran, that was in support of Israel during the 12-day imposed war?
If you look at Indian media, you would think that, India and Iran are destined enemies, but that's not the case. A lot of the people do understand, such as myself, do understand that, it was an unprovoked attack.
Hello and welcome to Iran Talks. My name is Samir Hakim. Following the October 7 attacks and the wars that followed, have rifts been exposed in organizations such as BRICs, which Iran is an official member of? Does India, a strong Israeli ally, view Iran as another obstacle to the India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor project, the IMEC, after the US and Israeli imposed war on Iran? And what is the current state of affairs between Iran, China, and India? To discuss this further, let's bring in Carl Zah, political commentator and host at Silk and Steel podcast, and Alok Arora, political commentator and host at K-Rated. Gentlemen, welcome. Alok, I want to start with you with the first question with regards to BRICs. Firstly, what is the intention of BRICs? Does it want to counter the West? And if it does, why can't it expand from just being an economic alliance to a security coordination? Can it actually do that?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me. And I think BRICS is actually meant to, it's basically an alliance. You could say countering the West, but then with all of the things that the West has been up to, you actually need to counter that because the way the dollar has been weaponized. I believe at this point of time, around 1/3 of the countries are sanctioned. You yourself know best, like how sanctions can, how badly they can hurt a country's economy. So you definitely need something like BRICs. And especially given, coming back to your question about the security alliance, BRICS is clearly, purely an economic sort of a grouping that, these countries will sort of trade with one another. There is no security alliance as such so far.
And this is something purely economic. There's no security coordination whatsoever at the moment.
No. I don't believe so. Not amongst all of the sort of BRICS countries. You of course have Russia, Iran, and China coordinating closely. Against the Western allies who are sort of carrying out a coordinated attack. But I don't believe that BRICS is sort of a security alliance as of now. But I think you definitely need one because you need one counterbalance to NATO. And because if you look at NATO, it's meant to be a defensive alliance. I'd like to know, when was the last time NATO actually carried out the work of a defensive alliance? Whereas the sort of attacks they carried out in Afghanistan, in Syria, Libya, it's mostly, in my opinion, it's mostly carrying out sort of offensive attacks to get countries to agree to the policies that the United States wants. And it's basically an alliance, which is a US-led alliance, because the amount of money that US contributes to NATO, it's the number one country, it's way more than, even if you add up the number 2 to number 10. So BRICS definitely needs to have some sort of a security arrangement as well, so that we can avoid, something that happened in Iran, those sort of preemptive strikes, as they call it. BRICS actually serves to basically counter the US dollar because not exactly because they want to do it, but the way they have weaponized it, and it's so obvious. I am from India, and I can tell you now that we are going to be facing the brunt of these 50% tariffs. So we are going to, even though for us, the country that we export to the most is the United States of America. They have actually decided to put 50% tariffs on us, and then we can sort of elaborate on that discussion. But then you sort of know it the best as to how the United States of America sort of weaponizes the dollar, and Russia knows it better. So,
Yeah.
is in the same context where. So you can't, where they say that, you're sanctioned now, so you can't just trade in the US dollar because the US dollar and the SWIFT system, if you cut a country out from the SWIFT system, you basically can't trade in the US dollar. So this was something that was really required, this sort of an alliance. And I really hope that in the future they come up with some sort of a security arrangement as well.
Carl, what are your thoughts on this? Does China feel the same thing as has been described by Alok in terms of what India feels?
I like to point out there is already a security forum called the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which includes China, Russia, India, and Iran. It is actually a security forum that for the purpose of discussing security cooperation. But Alok is right. That's not, so very far from a military alliance. Neither is BRIC. I mean, BRIC is originally BRICS is an acronym that was coined by Goldman Sachs to sell emerging market stocks. It just so happened that it became a forum for economic cooperation between the BRICS countries. And so far, it's more, it has functioned more as a forum that's more akin to, say, G7 or G20 than NATO, right? And but Shanghai Cooperation Forum, that's our cooperation organization, that's an area where the defense ministers of these countries get together and discuss how they can cooperate. I think in the aftermath of the 12-day Iran-Israel war, now we're going to see a much closer cooperation between Iran, Russia, and China in particular, because they, as we have discussed before on your show, that Iran right now, it needs to work on its shield. Iran has a strong spear, has tens of thousands of missiles to lob at Israel. But at the same time, Iran needs to protect its missile launchers from Israeli F-35 and F-16s. And this is where Russia and China can provide with Iran with air defense systems and possibly even fighter jets. And once these weapon sales takes place, it's not just simply hardware exchanging hands for cash. This is actually a decade-long building of relationship, because you have people that need to be trained. They're going to have cross-border personnel exchanges, and these systems require maintenance. So it's a long-term relationship building exercise that is naturally forming as a result of NATO aggression against these countries.
Okay, what about politically? I mean, can BRICS actually work politically against America and Israel in terms of the hegemony that they're trying to form? I mean, for example, India, being an Israeli ally, has abstained from a UN resolution calling for a ceasefire. So what about the political side of things? Alok, let's go to you first.
So yeah, I think what countries are realizing now, especially post the Trump tariffs, is that they really need a political alliance, like, something that, in which they can trade off against each other, sort of be less reliant on the US dollar. Unfortunately, the Indian government, they're sort of the weak link in BRICS. And the United States is doing their best to sort of, I am pretty sure that with the way things have gone with these 50% tariffs, Indian government, they weren't expecting that at all. They are definitely trying hard. That I'm sure in private conversations they must have even said that to hell with BRICS. You can't be with BRICS. And India is sort of stuck in a rock and a hard place now, because you have these tariffs against a country in which is the highest export from India to any country is with the United States of America. But Russia has been sort of the key defense ally for the longest period of time. And India has been buying oil from Russia. particularly since the Russia-Ukraine war started. So we were buying about 2% of our oil purchase was from Russia, which is up to 30% now. India is the second biggest buyer of Russian oil, and rightly so, because the price was right. But coming back to your question about if there needs to be a political alliance, definitely yes. India is, of course, the current government aligned much more with Israel. Israel being the biggest customer for Israel in the defense market is actually India. And and India has actually come out and stated openly as well that they will not participate in any sort of unified BRICS currency. Let's see if it all changes after sort of these tariffs when they come in place. The Indian government will definitely do whatever they can to get a deal, get this and balance things out as we have done in the past. But clearly, of course, since America views BRICS as anti-American, anti-US dollars, US dollar, it is going to be very difficult. And since the world is becoming even more bipolar, I think much more cooperation in BRICS would be required. Would the Indian government participate in that? That we don't know, because of late they've been sort of reluctant to really go the BRICS way and sort of more how do I say it? I have to choose my words carefully here. They're sort of more they sort of want to not rely more, but sort of silence the counterparts where they say that that India is anti-American. It's not working, I think, in my opinion. I think there may be a time when they need to pick sides, but right now they're just trying to do this tight walk rope. They're trying to do that balancing act.
Maybe they're trying to have the cake and eat it too at the same time. Carl, what are your thoughts? India being the weakest link, as mentioned by Alok, or possibly the weakest link. How does China stand in this if there was a political alliance, perhaps in the UN, fighting against American and Israeli sort of directions?
Well, right now, Donald Trump is the greatest promoter of BRICS. As Alok already pointed out, India was trying to position itself as midway, as both a member of BRICS and a member of Quad. And now Trump is actually shrinking the maneuver room for the Indian government. Essentially, it's United States that's forcing people to choose. Most countries in the world, I mean, including India included, but many countries in the world, including countries in Southeast Asia, they don't want to have to choose one side or the other. But it's certainly BRICS is not requiring people to choose. I mean, BRICS didn't ask India, you must take a stance with the BRICS collectively, because the whole point of BRICS is about sovereignty, respect for sovereignty. So, of course, India has sovereign rights to pursue its own interests in the best way it sees fit. Whereas the U.S.-NATO alliance is structured as an empire. U.S. has no allies. U.S. only have vassal states. It demands everybody to bend their knee and to kiss the ring. And that is how United States managed to alienate everybody. I mean, first they did it with the sanction on Russia. Like I said, BRICS originally started as an economic forum. It's United States action that has elevated BRICS as a counterweight to first G7, G20, and now even potentially NATO. This is because U.S. has alienated countries like Russia and now India as well. I mean, China has always been U.S. target, so of course. And this is a chance, actually, for BRICS to come to work together more closer. Indian Prime Minister Modi is due to visit China at end of this month. This timing, I mean, this is obviously this happened right after the Trump tariff, which is the signal coming from India's side. Okay, now a soft rapprochement between India and China is possible, and the division between India and China was probably the biggest division within the BRICS itself. And the mere fact that Donald Trump is pushing India toward China, this only serve to shore up the BRICS, the solidarity between the BRICS members.
All right.
May I just add a point there?
Yeah, go for it.
Sorry, may I just add a point? Yeah, I think from the United States perspective, what a better strategy would have been to sort of coax India, out of BRICS would have been to, we'll get you more involved with Pod. We'll give you let's create a G8 and we'll get India there. But since their nature is that of, as Carl really pointed out, of an empire, of a bully. So these are the sort of tactics they're employing, and it's not just about BRICS. I mean, they're actually asking India to open up its sensitive, politically sensitive sectors, like such as agriculture, which India really doesn't want. So this is sort of the punishment you get, that you just can't trade with the United States then, because of 50% tariffs. So you are sort of in the higher bracket, like with Brazil, and that basically means if you're not willing to obey what we are going to tell you, then you can't trade with us at all. That's basically what they're saying.
These tariffs are fairly perplexing for me. I don't really understand the logic behind them. Maybe, I don't know, maybe some of you can explain this to me, but it doesn't seem to me.
Donald Trump this is Donald Trump's baby. Donald Trump has had this idea in his head since 1980s that he thinks everyone must pay for the privilege of being included in the American empire. I mean, he has complaining about the Japanese and the Europeans since 1980s, and now he's a president. He gets to put it into practice. But on the other more urgent side for U.S. is their fiscal situation. U.S. has $37 trillion in national debt. And Trump was elected on the premise that he will cut taxes, cut spending. Well, he didn't cut spending. He just raised the official Pentagon budget to over $1 trillion. So where is going to get that money? And cutting taxes at the same time? Well, he's gonna raise tariffs on everybody. And what he doesn't tell Americans, it's not the foreign country that's paying those tariffs. It's American importers that's going to pay the tariff, and then the price increase is going to be passed on to American consumers. So essentially, tariff is a tax. It's a tax on all Americans. It's just that Trump's base is too dumb to realize that, so they're going along with it. They think China is paying the tariff and India is paying the tariffs, and it's a tax. They are trying to collect money from everybody.
It's crazy. It's like you said, it's so 1980s. I mean, the whole idea is very 1980s. Okay, Carl, just on the point of improving trade between countries, there was they finalized a freight train, and you're going to have to help me with the name of the town, Jian, is that right? From Jian to Tehran? As cutting.
Oh, from Xi'an to Tehran, yeah.
Yes.
They upgraded so there was existing rail link between China and Iran, and recently what they did, they just upgraded and optimized the link. So now it's the distance between the two is considerably shortened, and the distance, the time it takes to travel from China to Iran now it's a lot shorter.
So as I understand it, it's been cut from 30 days to 15 days. So is that a sign of increasing bilateral ties?
Oh, definitely. I mean, that has always been in the plans. By the way, this was not done like just recently. This was China. This as part of China's Belt and Road Initiative was to build connection points, to multiple connection points throughout the world. One also for strategic reasons, because U.S. Navy makes no secret about making Strait of Malacca a choking point where they can choke off energy supplies coming to China from Middle East, including from Iran. And the idea of Belt and Road project is China will build multiple connection points. So U.S. Navy cannot be at all points at all times. So there will be no singular point of failure. And so this land link is going to, of course, reinforce the bilateral ties with between China and Iran, and as well as all the Central Asian countries along the way.
Okay, Alok, I want to talk to you about the India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor project, the IMEC. Considering India's investment in Iran's Chabahar project, why has Iran been excluded from the IMEC? Is there a reason for that?
It's a very good question, and I myself wonder as to why they're doing it, because you already have an established north-south trade corridor. So why do you need to do that? But honestly, I think it was done more of the Indian government loves to, make big announcements, that this is what we're doing. And Indian people, I wouldn't include myself as one of them, of course, but a lot of Indian people, they suffer from Islamophobia as well as Chinophobia. So they feel like, any sort of such announcement goes down, a long way into helping the current ruling party into say that, we are actually countering China. So it absolutely makes no sense. And which is the reason why India doesn't actually, and it's not something that gets talked about in India at all. I can guarantee you most of Indian people wouldn't even know about it. There is no implementation unit in India for the same. There is no funding for the same that has been allocated by the Indian government. And from what I understand, it was an initiative by the Indian government to, for the same, probably to develop closer ties to Israel, perhaps. But
I mean, it does go. The corridor passes through.
Yeah.
The corridor passes through the Israeli and Emirati Saudi states
the Haifa
as well.
port, yeah, if it still exists, the Haifa port, that is.
Yes.
And the thing is also that the Haifa port is also operated by an Indian company. So there is also that link that, sort of Indian companies sort of prosper with it. But there's also sort of doubts as to, whether the investment that needs to go into this particular corridor, is it worth it? And it was probably, I'm just going to take, not a wild guess, but I'll just give my opinion that it was actually for the purpose of, it was basically good marketing. That, we are sort of actually countering China. And but I don't think a lot of work has been done in it. And in fact, there was, I'm forgetting the name, I think I had it written down. So they were actually presenting the same. It's called IMEC from potential to partnership. So there were talks, and some of the people in the talks, they said that, oh yeah, of course, this is something in which Palestine would also have to be involved. I mean, so what are they thinking? They're thinking that Israel and Palestine, like, they will coexist in sort of, in sort of a mutually beneficial relationship. And then, of course, they one of the things that actually got reported was that they were actually going to take advantage of the Abraham Accords. But then Saudi Arabia has not signed the Abraham Accords with Israel. And I mean, if anything, that chatter has gone down the bin, ever since the October 7th attacks, and since Israel has started carrying out this genocide, it makes, in my opinion, it makes absolutely no sense. And which is the reason why it never gets talked about in the Indian media. No politician ever mentions it.
Right.
So, yeah. So, I mean, if you already have an established trade corridor, you don't need another one. That's my take on it. And that's probably something that the Indian government thinks as well.
Carl, what do you think about this? Is it fair to say that China views the IMEC as a disaster? It's not really worth it?
Well, first of all, IMEC was proposed explicitly as a counter to China's Belt and Road Initiative. And it's also a Biden administration's baby, because they thought this was a way to kind of thread the needles to bring the Abraham Accord countries together with Israel, together with India. This is why it's specifically bypass Iran, because they really didn't like the fact that China brokered the Saudi-Iran peace deal. So this is their attempt to claw back Saudi Arabia, to gather all the Gulf countries and to get them even closer to integrate with Israel. And this, even though Saudi was supposed to be the next to join the Abraham Accords, of course, then October 7th happened, so that all got scattered to the winds. But Alok is right. This project does not make sense economically, because it requires ships to arrive in the Gulf countries, unload, then get on rail, and then sent to Haifa port, when you could just go. Why not just go through the port of Suez? I mean, why add the additional burden of unloading and loading? Of course, that was also before the blockade on the Red Sea by the Yemenis. So now it actually makes more sense than when you first got proposed. But now they have more political problem to deal with as a fallout of the Israel aggression against Gaza.
Okay, so just to sum this up, if we have the the China Belt Road and then the IMEC. Where does Iran stand in both of those? The IMEC, as I understand, Carl, you're saying is it was deliberately excluding Iran because we don't want Iran to be in anything to do with the sort of economic ties with Israel. Then the China Belt and Road Initiative. What are your thoughts on that with regards to Iran?
Right. Well, China's Belt Road Initiative, it builds connectivity everywhere. I mean, there's a lot of projects in Iran and in the Gulf countries. Because China has friendly relationship both with Iran and GCC and
Israel, or does that exclude Israel?
Well, China did have friendly relationship with Israel, Saudi, and Iran at the same time, and this is due to China's non-interference foreign policy, right? It's like your problem you handle between yourself, and we will just talk about trade. But China's relationship with Israel did cool off considerably after October 7th for obvious reasons. But at the same time, China still maintained friendly relations with GCC and Iran. And the fact that China already have these ports and rail link project makes the IMEC project redundant, like Alok says.
All right, Alok.
I'd just like to add one small point that so this was announced. The IMEC was announced in the sidelines of G20, which was almost 2 years ago. Belt and Road Initiative has been ongoing since 2013. And I think they also made another announcement. It was again by the United States of America, some B3W, something like that. That there's this another initiative. I mean, honestly, everything that China's doing, they are actually behind the curve like by 10 years. So China thinks of BRI 2013, and then 2023 they're like, oh, we need to counter that. So let's bring up something. China's already started processing payments in digital yuan, and they are planning to do that now. Launching the CBDC, the US dollar, they're planning to do all of that now. So I mean, I think it was more of a sort of a marketing thing rather than anything else. That's my take on it. I mean, if it was serious, you would be hearing about it. Like it.
But Alok,
you don't hear about it. Yeah, sorry.
Alok, that's what United States do at best: marketing and propaganda. That's what U.S. excel at. You're talking about the Build the World Back Better. That's again another Biden program. He talked about it together with Build America Back Better. None of these programs have yielded any fruits, by the way. This is all marketing, all talks. Because whereas China actually put real money on the table and put a lot of investment in the region. The United States, they talk about, very vague public-private partnership, but in the end, they want other people to put the money. They want the GCC to put the money because U.S. don't have the money anymore. U.S. don't just simply do not have the money to invest because all the money is needed to prop up the military-industrial complex.
Yeah, absolutely. And even IMEC doesn't have any sort of, clear source of funding as to who will fund it, where exactly. There's no clear path, I think. Yeah, I think I don't want to say much more, but I mean, even the Indian government relies a lot more on marketing than doing actual work. So I'll end it at that.
Okay, let's go nuclear. Both India and China are nuclear powers. Iran is not yet a nuclear power. It seems they're refusing to have a nuclear weapon. Is this like a lopsided relationship, a disproportionate relationship between the parties where Iran does not have the nuclear power, whereas China and India does? Alok, what are your thoughts on that?
I think I'll go the John Mearsheimer way. In every interview of his, he says that, if I were sort of the national security advisor for Iran, I would say that you got to go nuclear now. Because if they were, then maybe whatever happened, like during the 12-day war, that may not have happened. And it's something stupid, isn't it? Because nuclear basically means mutually assured destruction. Definitely sure that Iran has enough of a threat to wipe out Israel, which can do. It doesn't need nuclear to do that. but I don't know what I don't know what the sort of the thinking with in the Iranian leadership is, but
well, it's a
definitely,
religious, it's
I
a
think had
religious
they been
fatwa. We're not allowed to have, Iran is not
Yeah.
allowed to have
Yeah.
the nuclear weapon because it's a religious fatwa. So that's the thinking, right?
Yeah.
In your opinion,
If
is that an
no,
appropriate
that's something that I'm aware of, but I don't know if that's changed. But then again, I would, like I said, I'd go down the John Mearsheimer way. If I were NSA for national, if I were advising them on any sort of security matters, I'd say that you've got to have a nuclear weapon. I mean, think about it this way: India, Pakistan. Pakistan bent over backwards. They managed good relations with China, United States at the same time, developed their own nuclear weapon. And if they view sort of the Pakistanis view India as an existential threat, and they always use the
Pakistan is
nuclear
a
threat
nuclear power
because
as
the
well, isn't
nuclear
it?
is used as a threat.
Pakistan is a
They
nuclear
are,
power
they
as
are.
well? Yeah, they are. Okay.
Yeah, similar number of nuclear weapons, but I mean, it doesn't matter. Anything say above 100, and that's enough to sort of destroy the entire world, anyways. So yeah, I think in today's world, the world we live in, and especially with the likes of with the hegemony of United States of America, they have never picked on like a direct conflict with any nuclear powered nation. That seems to be their sort of policy.
Right, Carl, what do you think?
I think Iranian government was facing with a hard choice because obviously the benefit of being a nuclear power is clear to everybody, but at the same time, if Iran does go nuclear, there's a strong possibility that U.S. will try to even further isolate Iran. Just like how they have isolated North Korea. And what Iran tried to do in the past is they tried to use the fact they're a nuclear threshold country, not a full nuclear power, but nuclear threshold country, to negotiate for the lifting of Western sanction against Iran. Iran basically said, hey, we give up our nuclear weapon program in exchange for having normal trade relationship with U.S. and Europe. That was a deal. That was a deal that Trump tore up in his first term. And that was a deal Trump dangled in front of Iran just so Israel can do a sneak attack, like a Pearl Harbor style sneak attack on Iran. So now it's going to be much harder for Iran to trust anything that United States have to say or have to offer in that regard. I think there's probably more incentive now in Iran than ever to seriously look into the nuclear option. But again, I understand because Iranian government was looking at international isolation, like in the case of North Korea, or safeguard its, territorial integrity and sovereignty. But I don't think anybody had expected, Israel would be crazy enough to actually launch direct attack against Iran. Now we know that they aren't that crazy, so that might change the calculation a little bit.
Okay, following on from the nuclear issue, the energy issue, obviously we've spoken about tariffs as well, and Trump's favorite toy, which is, to put on more tariffs on everybody who does anything that he doesn't like, including tariffs on anybody who buys oil from Iran, from Russia, from anything that is not with the US dollar. Are India and China going to allow that kind of dictation by the United States of America? Alok, do you want to go with that one first?
Yeah. So they've been ever since Trump has been back for his second term, he has been way more vocal about it. And I mean, he sort of destroyed the German economy, a lot of the European countries also, by telling them that, listen, you guys want protection from Russia, and then you're buying energy from them. And I see a similar, and Europe being a vassal state, they sort of agreed. But unfortunately, I see a similar pattern in India because ever since Trump's second term, so I think we were buying last year about 3% from the United States, crude oil. And now we are up to 8% from the United States. Reuters has reported that we are actually decreasing the amount of oil purchased, crude oil from Russia. Our own companies have come out and said that, yeah, they are going to be reducing. RBI governor, the Reserve Bank of India, so which is our central bank, the governor has himself come out and said that, yeah, it won't make a difference to cost. Yeah, it won't make a difference to cost because the pump price was never changed. It was still very, very high. So India, unfortunately, seems to be going down that route. They're bending down backwards for a lot of reasons. The biggest one is that the biggest export market is the United States of America. They probably don't want to. So what the unrealistic expectations from the American government is that they want India to open up its agricultural market, which is responsible for about half of the labor workforce. That's where half of the workforce is employed. If that gets opened up, I mean, then it's even more tragic. So unfortunately, I think
tragic in what sense? If you open up
of,
the agricultural sort of trade in
so
India
the dairy and agriculture, so basically they've reduced tariffs on a lot of goods. They've even offered to give sort of zero tariffs on all industrial products, which is basically 40% of what India was importing from the United States of America. Now they're saying that, no, you got to open up agriculture as well. So half of the workforce in India is employed in the agriculture sector or the dairy sector. And these are, basically farmers rely on agriculture. You have these small cooperatives which rely on, dairy, sort of milk and all of the other dairy products. So what Trump wants is for India to open up these particular sectors. I mean, we can't do that. If we do that, then it's just political suicide. It's bad in every sense of the way, because can we employ all of these people? We have a population of almost 1.3 billion people. Then can we employ all of these people in the industrial sector? Unfortunately, no. So that is basically a no-go territory. So they are basically trying to, they've even said that, okay, we have a deficit of about 45 billion. We are willing to, buy up energy, buy up defense-related equipment to cover that up. But please, we need this particular deal. We need a favorable deal compared to what you've given to, say, the likes of, competing countries such as Vietnam, South Korea. So they are bending over backwards. They really, really need this deal. And unfortunately, as a result, even our ministers have come out and said that, yeah, we will purchase less Russian oil and we'll go down the route which was before the Russia-Ukraine war, where we were only purchasing 2%.
Right. And Carl, your thoughts on that?
And we purchased, and 30% of our purchases of crude oil, Russian crude oil, is 30% now, which was 2%.
Right. Carl,
yeah,
I mean, with regards to China, that's...
China has...
Go ahead.
China was very explicit. Basically, China has said who we purchase oil from, that's our sovereign rights. Nobody can tell us what to do. Certainly not U.S. And China has, China and India are the largest purchaser of Russian oil. China be number one, India be number two. And China is the largest purchaser of uranium oil. And basically China says, hey, it's a U.S. sanction on Russia, U.S. sanction on Iran. We don't have to abide by your sanctions. We get to buy oil from whoever we want. But what Trump did is he's levied secondary sanctions. So anybody, any company, any individuals who purchase Iranian oil or Russian oil, they will now be targeted by U.S. sanctions. In this case, I don't think China would budge, because what would Trump do? He's going to raise the tariff on China back to like 100% level back in May? That's unrealistic. I mean, that happened in May, and then Chinese ships stopped coming to U.S., and then Trump's Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent had to chase the Chinese vice premier all the way to Europe to work out a deal. So China is calling Trump's bluff. And as far for the Iranian oil, again, there's what China again. What is Trump gonna do? Trump is gonna levy general tariff on China. If not, even if U.S. try to go after the individual Chinese company that purchase Iranian oil, it won't work because the main purchaser of Iranian oil from China they're not the state-owned major oil companies. They're these independent private so-called teacup refineries, mostly in the Shandong province. They purchased Iranian oil because they could get a 15% discount. And that's large enough margin for them to risk a U.S. sanction. And because they're small operations, their main customer is China and it's South Chinese. So they have very little overseas exposure. So they don't deal with U.S. dollars. So that way, any U.S. sanction on them will just bounce right off because they don't have any deal in U.S. dollars, and they will be protected in that sense from any U.S. financial sanction because their dealing is in the Chinese yuan only.
Alok is saying that India is prepared to bend over backwards. I'm assuming that's for self-interest. You're saying that China is not going to budge. You don't think it's going to budge. Is that out of loyalty or is that out of self-interest as well?
I mean, China. Why would China budge? China.
It may be in its self-interest not to budge. You see what I mean? Like maybe it's not the issue of sovereignty.
Yeah, of course. I mean, but why would China give in? China have the cards in this negotiation. China have a chokehold on the rare earth production. You know, U.S. is crying foul because they couldn't get rare earth from China anymore, and China knows that. China right now, any U.S. company they want rare earth, they have to go send an application to the Chinese Commerce Ministry, says please can I have some rare earth, and they get approved for next 6 months. And China have that cards to play, and because China refines 90% of the world's rare earth production, even when they produce rare earths in California, they still send the rare earths to China for processing. So Trump cannot, Trump just simply cannot strong-arm China to conform to his position. This is just a matter of defending one's sovereignty. China takes sovereignty very seriously. There's no way U.S. is going to be able to tell China what to do.
Just on that,
because China is a producer.
Alok, Iran considers sovereignty very important as well. I just want to press on that point of sovereignty. India is prepared to bend over backwards. It's prepared to give up its sovereignty in the face of all of these.
This is a very difficult question to answer because, like I said, that India is also going through an unemployment crisis right now, and you have because of these tariffs now, basically, prior to these tariffs, there were so many industries that were thriving in India because of this. But now you have you have the pharma sector. They're saying that they'd probably put even more tariffs on the pharma sector. Then you have jewels and jewelry. Like this particular industry is very big in India. They will just completely go out of business in terms of selling to the United States of America. So you have the iPhones that are produced here. Now, if these tariffs come into place, then you wouldn't have any such manufacturing coming into India at all.
I don't know. iPhones were made in India as well.
Yeah, they are assembled.
Very nice.
So most of the parts come in from China. They assemble it here, and like I said, they're in a very difficult position, and they probably didn't see this coming. I mean, the only thing that we would hear on the news was that we are getting a good deal coming. There's an awesome deal coming. It will be better than our competitors. But what just happened was it was a shock to everyone. And then listen, if you have say about I think there's around $80 billion worth of trade that we export to the United States of America, and India hasn't diversified at all. And we have never ever had a problem like this. And the way Trump has been calling out our prime minister, in fact, our country, that's not been seen ever since Nixon was the president of the United States of America. So it's actually very, very worrying. And so there's all sorts of mixed signals coming, but then forget about what they're saying. All their actions are that they need to get this particular deal done. and they need to do it without compromising on the agriculture and dairy sectors. That's sort of what their actions are telling us. And sovereignty, yeah, I mean, there's sort of other things also going on that we'd rather not talk about over here.
Well, what about the
But
military
yeah.
instructions that they take from the United States? Is that one of the things that you'd prefer not to talk about?
No, none at all. No.
Okay.
Security-wise, India is not compromised. In fact, we don't even buy that much equipment from the United States of America. None of our jets are from there. We do have some Apache helicopters and things like that, but there's nothing like that. It's mostly trade, which is why they are able to squeeze. And see, the other thing is also, like I said, that India suffers from Chinophobia. So now, if our prime minister has to go to China, to Xi Jinping, and ask for a nice deal so that Indian companies can start exporting to China, that doesn't look good. And this particular government is a lot about optics. What sort of looks good, what sort of looks bad, and which is what we saw during the India-Pakistan conflict. So this particular thing looks very bad, because what was advertised to us throughout was that we have this amazing relationship. Our prime minister has this amazing relationship with Donald Trump. And now it seems that wasn't the case at all.
Okay,
so
you're saying
to try
that
and save these sectors,
India doesn't buy a lot of weaponry or machinery from the United States. The F-16s.
They do. India buys from everyone.
From everyone. The F-16s.
India buys from everyone.
The F-16s.
We have no F-16s. No. We have mostly Russian jets. Then there's Rafales, which was the latest purchase from France. But when we have these Apache helicopters from there. So India buys from everyone. India has been able to play this, sort of balancing act very, very well. But due to some internal factors and majorly external, we are sort of getting caught now. And I think mostly because Trump felt that, he could end the Russia-Ukraine war on their terms. He doesn't want to accept the fact that, they've lost on the battlefield over there. So he's going sort of, absolutely ballistic and trying to do anything that he can to sort of, bring Russia to its knees, whereas the exact opposite is happening. And they're saying that now India won't buy Russian oil. And BRICs, 100%, they're really scared of BRICs. And that's one of the reasons, that would be one of the things that he would have said, that, listen, you guys got to get rid of.
Okay,
you guys got to exit BRICs.
This is a question for both of you, but I'll stick with you, Alok, for a minute. How would you summarize the China-Iran military cooperation versus India's reliance on America and the US?
No, India is not reliant on anyone. Sorry.
India is not reliant militarily.
India is not reliant. No. For defense, it's not reliant on anyone. It sort of appeases everyone when it comes to defense procurement. We are one of the largest buyers in terms of defense, and we don't even make that much equipment ourselves. So in terms of security, we are not reliant on anyone in the sense. And since you spoke, and our relationship with China has had a lot of friction. So it's been reported that according to China, they are not invading territory. According to India, we are invading territory. According to us, it's not disputed at all, along a couple of states. So if anything, India if India doesn't have a problem in terms of strategic alliances, but it does have a sort of a history of conflict with Pakistan, of course, and a little bit of skirmishes here and there with China. And
what about Israel?
I'd rather that
what about India's relationship with Israel in terms of military and technologies?
India just buys a whole lot of equipment from them for I don't know what reason. In fact, I was talking to someone and I said, I'd rather that we buy all of that equipment from United States, make sure that we get our tariffs down, because what do we get? I think our government is also interested in a lot of spyware that Israel has, which they probably didn't want to sell, which was one of the reasons why they said that, okay, we'll buy up all of this defense, whatever. They may have had some relationship, but India has a special interest in all of that spy tech that they've developed by oppressing Palestinians.
Right. Carl, what are your thoughts on this? How would you summarize the China-Iran military cooperation versus India's reliance or non-reliance on Israel and the US?
Because China and Iran, they both try to develop their indigenous capability. As Alok mentioned, India they buy a lot of hardware from abroad. They buy from Russia, they buy from Europe, but buy for some little bit from America. But they do this balancing game. Whereas Iran and China have tried mostly rely on themselves. But there are some areas where China could help Iran with, particularly in terms of air defense system, because China now is at the point where they have the industrial capacity to provide Iran with whatever Iran wants, without a serious constraint, supply bottlenecks. And one of the things that this is what U.S. complain about, the so-called Chinese overcapacity. So how many air defense missile Iran want, China can deliver. That's the key. This is why China can say no to the United States, because China has been prepared since the first Trump term to completely decouple with the United States. For China, it's okay; they can walk away from that relationship, no problem. It's U.S. that depends. 80% of the antibiotics used in the United States come from China. If they don't want that, that's fine. It's their problem. If their hospitals or their medical plastics all come from China. If they want to screw over themselves, it's fine. China can walk away. It's okay.
All right, does that mean that Iran should lean towards China for its sort of military relationship in terms of cooperation and move away from India then?
Oh, no, I mean, I don't know if there's a lot of military hardware exchanging hand between Iran and India.
No.
I mean,
no,
and also, one of the things China military cooperation is structured in a way that a lot of the thing will be indigenously produced. So a lot of this hardware will be licensed production, be produced in Iran. There will be the technology transfer carrying out. So that would be very important, because Iran has a real emphasis on the capability to be indigenously produce the weapons themselves.
Okay, in what word, yes or no? Do you think Iran can rely on China?
Well, that word would be yes. China has unlimited production capabilities. China so far has been providing Iran with the materials to make missiles, which is one of their strongest weapon against Israel in the 12-day Israel-Iran conflict. And China has a traditionally friendly relationship with Iran. I mean, this stretched all the way back to Sasanian days.
Okay,
So
what about
there's
India?
No way,
can Iran, in one word, rely on India in times of crisis?
I don't think so. In terms of defense purchase, there's nothing that Iran, I think, buys from India. In fact, most of what India sells outside is ammunition. So, and given India and Iran don't even have very close ties now in terms of defense, I think there was some pact signed, but it was sort of inconsequential.
Okay, I want to ask now about the population in India. Alok, if you can enlighten us with regards to what was the percentage of the population that was in support of Iran, that was in support of Israel during the 12-day imposed war? Were most in favor of Iran or of Israel? How does it stand?
This is a very difficult one to answer, but but since I have this opportunity, I would like to say that if you look at Indian media, you would think that India and Iran are destined enemies, and it was really sad to see this. In fact, in one of the interview with mainstream media, the Iranian ambassador to India even did say he did not use the word criticize, and he emphasized that I'm not using the word criticize, but the reporting was not neutral. And I mean, it's ridiculous how far this media has gone in our country. It's absolutely ridiculous, like the sort of things that they show. And so I would say, judging by the media, if you look at that, you'd think that everyone in India is sort of anti-Iran and pro-Israel, but that's not the case. A lot of the people do understand, such as myself, do understand that it was an unprovoked attack, but having sympathies more with Iran. However, the mainstream media narrative was not so. And in fact, and I would say even the government's narrative is not something that's shown by the media. In fact, the government has come out and said there was one of our influencers who has a very, very big reach, and he had used some absolutely appalling words for the Iranian foreign minister. And the Iranian embassy actually called out the Indian embassy for that, is this the way you treat guests? And they actually had to come out and, apologize for that and say that, it is one person's view. It is not it is not actually.
Has that apology happened yet, or it hasn't?
The particular influencer hasn't apologized. Right. But then that's the thing, that in this country, you don't even get called out by the government, or at least, I don't know, maybe there was a slap on the wrist in private. But judging by the Indian media, you would think that, that Iran and India are like, sworn enemies. But it's
right.
not like that at all. The government doesn't think like that, and nor do the people.
And the Indian Modi media, how much of a role did that play in this?
So I don't think there were any sort of instructions from the government to portray something. But then in India, unfortunately, we have this environment, as I told you, Islamophobic environment. So if there is sort of, Israel, then I don't know if the Zionists invest anything into the Indian media. But because we are predominantly Hindu, around 70 to 75% is Hindus. The rest are sort of the minorities. Muslims are about 20% in this country. They sort of feel that, they need to do this to cater to the local audience.
Yes.
That's what the media says. I've spoken to so many people, and there is no other particular reason for them, saying all the things that they did on media. It's absolutely shameful.
Okay.
But in terms of the public support, I could not tell you an exact number. But then there's a whole lot of people, and you can see it on social media. Anyone with a sound sense of logic, even that bit of logic, was sort of had sympathies with Iran.
Okay, over to you, Carl. What do you think the percentage was in terms of, if I was to ask 100 people on the street of China, how much would sway towards Israel and how many would sway towards Iran?
I think it will be overwhelmingly in favor of Iran, because many people in China know that Iran is a friendly country. Now, Israel, this is an interesting case, because before October 7th, I would even say China is a philo-Semitic country, as in, if you walk into Shanghai bookstore, you will find books on like how to learn from the Jewish people, how to raise your children to be successful, to send them to Harvard and Yale, right? So I don't think anybody can accuse China of being an anti-Semitic country, but the October 7th changed the perception greatly, because a lot of Chinese saw and sympathized with the Palestinian cause, because they saw in the suffering of Palestinians what they themselves have suffered in the past, is particularly in the Japanese invasion during World War II, and so because of that, and because they know there's Iran is a friendly country. I mean, no doubt, no question. If you ask, most people would side with Iran.
Yeah, it's an interesting comment that you make about the issue of anti-Semitism. I mean, the Zionists and what they're doing to the Palestinians and how the world is watching it unfold. I mean, the Zionists are causing, what they're doing is the very cause of the anti-Semitism that is happening. And the world isn't anti-Semitic. It's just trying to find justice here, really. I'm going to end with a quote here. I'm going to ask your opinion on it. Trump has said, "It's very important to me," Trump, "that all Middle Eastern countries join the Abraham Accords after the destruction of Tehran's nuclear arsenal." Alok, what's your opinion on that?
I think the Americans are delusional.
In one word? Okay.
They have absolutely zero evidence to show that something happened. And I was watching Professor Ted Postel, who has worked with the American military, and he totally debunked it. Everything that you have. So you have a Fox News presenter who is a defense minister over there in the country. I mean that just sounds as ridiculous as it actually is. And then they made this whole presentation, and he debunked the entire thing. And he basically said that there's absolutely zero evidence to show that it actually happened. And given what's happening, I think it's a very feeble desperate attempt by the Americans, who are entirely in the grip of the Zionists. It may be historical ties, it may be Jeffrey Epstein, whatever the reason may be. It's just a desperate attempt to sort of, get Israel, get a few countries that would listen to them, that are basically their vassal states, to actually normalize relations with a state that absolutely has no right to exist.
Okay, Carl,
so absolutely delusional.
Carl,
yeah.
Carl, what are your thoughts on that? Alok thinks the Americans are absolutely delusional. Your thoughts?
I mean, nobody should take Trump seriously. Trump actually intentionally did a glancing blow against Iranian nuclear facility just to get a lot of the pressure from Israeli off his back, because there was intense pressure in United States to get U.S. involved in a direct war against Iran and possibly in ground invasion with regime change as the goal. But Trump, he would go for an easy victory. He's the type of person he would definitely go for an easy victory. This is why he collaborated with Israel in the initial attack against Iran. But when he saw that the protracted war wasn't favoring Israel, he has no interest to get dragged into a quagmire in West Asia, the way that U.S. got bogged down in Iraq war. So this is why now we know he have even claimed to inform Iran that he was going to strike, and this is just so Donald Trump can claim that he had sided with Israel, standing firmly with Israel. Now give me a Nobel Peace Prize and declare victory and be done with it. So it's that's just the type of person Donald Trump is, and but thankfully that also means we are a step away from a World War III. So maybe it's a good thing.
The Americans are absolutely delusional, and whatever Trump says should never be trusted. I'm going to nominate those for quotes of the year. To the guests, Alok and Carl, thank you once again for joining us. To the viewers, thank you for watching. What are your thoughts on these issues? Can India play a bigger role to stabilize this region, considering its investment in Israel and some of its countermeasures against China, as our guests alluded to? And can Iran rely on China and India at times of crisis? How detrimental is the US dollar hegemony in the Asian trading markets? Let us know what you think, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for watching. We'll see you again soon.
Iran.